Alrighty, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome once again to our SCA New South Wales Wednesday webinar series. As tradition dictates, I'll wait a few moments for everyone to enter the Zoom room. While we're doing that, a quick shout out to Lindsay Farrell from the SCA Secretariat, who has given us our new and improved look. You'll see that Tony, Emily, and I are all sporting our SCA backgrounds. I know it looks like I'm sort of floating around in cyberspace, but I hope the new look, I hope you like the new look. We have been on hiatus for the last couple of weeks during the Easter school holidays and Anzac Day period, but we're thrilled to be back to bring you the second installment all about the Strata Hub. So I've already said once again, I'm joined by Emily Doherty, who is the New South Wales and South Australian State Manager for the Smarter Communities Group and Vice President of SCA New South Wales. Hello, Emily. Matt Press, who has recently had a promotion. He is now the Executive Director of Compliance and Dispute Resolution within, I'm just going to say within government, because he's not quite sure what department he's sitting under at the moment. So welcome again, Matt, friend of SCA and friend of our Wednesday webinars, who's here to give us his perspective on Strata Hub from a government point of view. And no stranger to our Wednesday webinar, Mr. Anonymous himself, Tony Irvine, who is the founder and managing director of your local Strata and also the senior vice president of SCA New South Wales. Now, I did forget to mention, today is May the 4th. Now, for all the sci-fi nerds out there, you'll know that May the 4th is affectionately known as Star Wars Day. So May the 4th be with you for all the Star Wars fans out there. Now, before we get into today's session, just a couple of announcements. So if you'll indulge me for a few moments. Last week, we had a very successful Principals Night Off. For those of you who aren't familiar with the Principals Night Off, it's an opportunity for leaders of strata businesses and service suppliers in our industry to come together to discuss concerns about the sector and focus on issues of the operation of their business. And I know that Strata Hub, we did touch upon it quite thoroughly during the P&O. This year's focus, however, was very much on a digital presence and things like social media, website content, cybersecurity, Google reviews, and maintaining a professional appearance online. And I'd like to thank all of the presenters and attendees who made the event a great success. Now, you should also be aware we will be conducting another Principals Retreat, which is a little bit longer format of the P&O, over in Queenstown, New Zealand later this year, which will be on from the 24th to the 26th of August. This is always a very popular event. I encourage all principals and business leaders out there to attend. Not only are these events extremely informative, they are also a lot of fun and a chance to network with your peers in the sector. So if you've got any suggestions for topics for the Principals Retreat, please let us know, and we'll certainly put them on the agenda for the couple of days that we will be away. A couple of other event announcements. Of course, next week is Friday the 13th. We will have our annual SCA Golf Day, which is at St. Michael's golf course. There are a couple of spaces still available for that. So if you're a golfer or even if you're a weekend hacker, you might want to put a team together and come along to the SCA Golf Day, which will be on Friday the 13th next week. And you should also be aware that submissions for the annual SCA Awards are now open. And again, I encourage everyone out there to nominate in your respective categories, whether it be in the individual categories or the business categories. And of course, don't forget your strata plans, your clients. They may want to nominate for a strata plan award, particularly surrounding environment and sustainability. So don't forget about those guys either. Submissions close for the SCA Awards on Friday the 27th, so there's still a little bit of time to get everything you need together. But again, I do encourage everyone to put their nominations in for that. Now, last but not least, you will be happy to know that we are currently working on an updated version of the SCA agency agreement. This agreement will recognise the professional standard schemes and also the proposed amendments to the Strata Schemes Management Act that are due to be released later this year. We haven't forgotten about it. We know it's been a long time coming. However, I can assure you that we are working on it in the background to make sure that it is new and improved and captures all of the things that we need as strata managers. I've probably made Pete Brisbane fall off his chair, but as soon as it's ready to go, we will have further announcements about that shortly. What I would like to do, and just diverting away from our topic of Strata Hub just for 1 second, Lucy has prepared, I hope, a little poll for us. This was a topic of debate amongst the senior leaders of the SCA board last week at the Principals Retreat. We're actually just inquiring or wondering how many of our SCA members actually currently use the current SCA management agreement versus their own proprietary agreement. And thank you, Lucy. You'll see there should be a poll that's come up for you. So, and this is just a quick straw poll. Does your company currently use the SCA agency agreement? Either yes or no. It's a fairly simple choice. And again, we just want to get a bit of a guide as to how many members out there are actually using the agreement. Okay, Lucy, you can close that down whenever you feel is necessary. Okay, so there we go. We weren't far off. So 86% of our members, Tony and I had a bet. I said it's going to be about 80-20, and there we go. Tony won. So
my ass, you did. You thought it was going to be less than that, and
no,
we bet something, and I can't recall what it was. I look forward to collecting in Queenstown, Brelly.
No worries, mate. Well, I was close. I said 80-20. So there you go. Anyway, it was 80-20 Tone. I've got it on recording.
15%. I was pretty close.
There we go. Anyway, okay. So on to today's topic. Our first session on Strata Hub focused particularly on the proposed workings of the hub from a government point of view, and what the government was doing to prepare for the hub. So today we thought we'd look at the Strata Hub from more of a Strata manager's point of view and what you should be doing in your own businesses to prepare yourselves and your clients for the commencement of the hub. You'll be pleased to know that we have prepared a fairly detailed FAQ in conjunction with the New South Wales Department of Customer Service that we will be releasing to all members tomorrow morning following this webinar. So keep an eye out for that. The questions that were compiled in that particular FAQ largely came from the questions received prior to the last webinar and also during the last webinar. So again, I do encourage everyone to keep an eye out for that. And of course, today, if you have any questions about what we are discussing today, please don't hesitate to whack them into the question and answer section of the webinar chat. Again, Emily and Tony and Matt are here to help us all with your questions. So please don't hesitate to put them in. Now, there are a couple of things which I'll knock off straight away, which I know have been very common questions. The first one is surrounding user testing, okay? And when will a testing site be available for the hub? The government is still very much on track for this to commence in late May. Okay, so later on this month, this should be up and running, where Strata managers will be able to log on to a test site and actually upload information. The other very common question that we are getting asked is, will there be the ability for bulk uploads of information for Strata managers to the Strata Hub? And the answer to that is most definitely yes. The government is working on APIs. These will be uploaded via secure CSV files, and there'll be various data formats that will go up depending on what sort of data series you're looking to upload onto the hub. So there are two questions that the government has been helping us with, very much so, and we do appreciate their feedback and also listening to what the concerns of our members are. So what I thought where we'd start today is, again, just getting the government's perspective of the Strata Hub. Like, what's the purpose of the hub? Why has it been created? And what is the government going to do with the hub? So, Matt, I might throw to you first up, just to give everyone a little bit of an overview again of what the purpose of the hub is all about.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. And I got to acknowledge that we have this FAQ that everyone's going to get tomorrow is really good, and I think that's thanks to you and the team really investing and bringing together all those members' questions and working closely with my team. So I think hopefully everyone will find it a really helpful document. But why are we doing this thing? Look, we have to acknowledge that it is a big change to how we operate, and it is going to bring in, particularly initially, a lot of burden. Capturing all of the information that goes to schemes. There's no getting around that. So why we're doing it, I think, is very important to keep in mind, because there is a big why to it, and it's going to benefit Strata managers and the people that we manage, the community and regulators going forward. So the first one is about storing key information. It solves the problem of information being in Strata managers' offices, in manila folders, some in some digital networks, some owners' corporations under the bed in a shoebox. For the first time, we have all key information. It can still be stored in all of those other places, but there's a repository which is trusted, which has everything that a Strata manager, a regulator, an emergency services person, or a Strata owner needs to access. So a single source of truth and a source of transparency. So that's the first thing. The second one is to try and help schemes manage themselves. So digital products are really great for helping us manage things more efficiently. With this Strata Hub, we can have it send out reminders so it can help managers and owners corporations keep on top of all of the various requirements in terms of getting insurance done, holding annual meetings, getting the annual fire safety statement done. That's just the first ones that come to mind now, and no doubt going forward we'll think about more options. So helping schemes and strata managers manage their communities better in a really automated way. The next one is to help us regulate schemes more efficiently. So through this data and information capture, we can make the process of being regulated more simple for strata managers and the owners corporations, and also as a regulator, use the data to proactively get them in front of a problem early. So if we notice a scheme has got a low amount of money in the sinking fund, or is being late with getting its fire safety statement done or annual general meeting, those can be our sort of early warning signals to get in there as a regulator and help before it ends up as a mess. And I think that's a really powerful thing, because we know if we can't keep a hold of these things, they can just go off the rails very quickly. The last one for me is engagement. And that's really important. It now provides a way for government and us as the regulator, plus other services like fire and rescue, and perhaps services like Service New South Wales that want to communicate with the sector regularly, with a mechanism, a bit like you have with your tax account with MyATO and an inbox there. We can definitively communicate with not just every strata manager, but the next level down, every strata owner. And we really saw that as a big problem when we first started 3 years ago, trying to find out every building affected by cladding, and literally had to have inspectors wandering around doing a letterbox drop, because not every building has a letterbox. So trying to knock on doors. This provides us a very direct, modern way of communicating that we can trust and rely upon above all else. So those are the four: transparency, accountability, regulating more efficiently and more helpfully, and then engagement and communication.
Sure. So, Matt, I just want to touch on something that you raised there. So, one of the things is going to be helping schemes manage themselves more effectively. And I know this is a very, very new initiative by the government. So, if you do see a scheme that raises a flag, like, for example, they may be underinsured, or may appear as though they're underinsured, or it may appear as though that their capital works fund is a little bit light on. Do you know, has the government spoken about what type of response or what type of intervention that they'll be taking?
I think very much our first approach would be education first. So not be to regulate, right? All stop, to actually work through the problem in consultation with the strata managed, the owners corporation. I think thinking education and response first, compliance second.
Yeah, absolutely. And from your opening comments there about how this can help strata managers, we will know on the ground, it can be very difficult for us as strata managers to convince owners to prepare proper capital works fund reports, or even insure their buildings properly. So with you tapping us on the shoulder and saying, hey, strata manager, hey, owners corporation, it looks as though you may be, a little bit underdone here. That's where you guys as the regulators can really help us, because again, it's not coming from the bad strata manager who's telling you to do this. It's coming from government to say, hey guys, looks like you're a little bit behind the 8 ball.
Exactly. And really back the strata manager in when they're saying to the meeting, look, I'm telling you, you've got to invest in more. And so we can sort of be, right behind the strata managers on that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So what I might do now, Tone, I'm going to throw to you, because you had a very interesting view about why strata managers should be embracing the Strata Hub, despite all the teething problems that we may face first up. So over to you.
Thanks, Bradley. And Matt, it's good to see you, and hopefully you can stay in contact with us once you move on to your new role. It was interesting, as we were preparing for this webinar earlier on in the week, we sort of all acknowledged around the table at SCA that this was a bit of a pain in the ass, because the government's got some really good intentions on this, and we get the journey that they're on, but it's coming in. We're not really ready for this, and consumers aren't ready for it. So it's a lot of change that's coming, and it comes into effect pretty soon. So it's not really ready to go. But I had the view that this is a really good thing for consumers and a really good thing for strata managers. Now, before everyone floods the floods the chat with, you're full of rubbish. They're half of the 100,000 strata plans that are registered in New South Wales are self-managed at the moment. This is going to apply to a lot of those guys as well. So they're going to have to put this information in. And that's where the government can make sure that these guys are actually following the Act. So things around reminders, I think, are going to be more relevant to those ones that are self-managed, or perhaps those managers that aren't really on top of their sort of compliance stuff. But I don't see Strata Hub sending me a reminder. That should be my job to do. So we should be so far on top of our compliance that we've got this covered. So I actually see that self-managed buildings will finally sort of start to recognise they should come across and be managed by a professional strata manager. So I think there's business growth for strata managers there. A lot of what the government's done over the last sort of 5 and 10 years between, Dave Chandler and the Design Practitioners Act and a whole range of things is about protecting consumers. The missing link there was, how do consumers get access to this information? So at the moment, if you've got a strata plan at 44 William Street, how do you know who the strata manager is on that? I mean, Anthony Cacesis knows who the manager is, but no one else is going to know who the manager is. So having access to this information where we can easily find out if we've got an issue with a neighbour or the guy that's over the back fence. So rather than breaking into the building and looking at the notice board, which is how we generally find out who the managers are, this will give us access to that information. Certainly being able to have having the emergency services, knowing who to call if there's a problem, is marvellous. The challenge, I think, for managers is that the government is sort of helping us drive that we should have communication links and access to this data for our clients anyway. So, I mean, the Strata Hub is one way to do it, but we should also have ways that people can get access to this information directly, and this information and more, like minutes and like copies of reports and the whole range of things. So if managers don't have portals or apps or whatever where they can get hold of this information and even more rich information, it's something to start to think about, because you don't want the Strata Hub being the replacement repository for this information that your strata managers should be able to provide to you. One thing I know, sort of having a look at the other states as well, the level of government interaction with the strata community in New South Wales far exceeds any other state. Emily, I know, has got businesses across other states as well, and we really are a bit of a shining example of how government and the community and strata managers actually work together. If you go to some of these other states, none of this stuff exists at all, and there's no idea. So I would imagine the other states are going to pick this up as well. Certainly from an SCA perspective, we would encourage this sort of information to be available to lot owners. The other thing, I actually look at compliance. I mean, so much around our job is around compliance, be it fire, be it handrails, be it locks, be it everything, OH&S. We all make money out of compliance. If you took the compliance side out of our businesses, we'd all probably drop a couple of $100 a lot. So having this is really good. The government's going to clip $3 a lot, and strata managers should be charging a fee for uploading and maintaining this information. So if you look at how many strata plans we've got, 50,000 strata plans that have been managed across the industry. If you're charging sort of half an hour's worth of work, that's a couple $100 per plan, which is going to be good for strata managers. So this sort of easy compliance stuff is a really good thing for us. But more importantly, it gives consumers access to this information. So there's some thoughts. I'm sure there'll be other stuff coming across the chat that we can expand on, Stephen.
Yeah, no, thanks, Tone. And I just want to pick up on something that you said right at the opening of your speech there, which was lovely. Basically, one of the big concerns of strata managers is, hey, look, there's a commencement date of 30 June. We've got 3 months to put in the information as the hub. That time frame seems to be a little bit unrealistic. Look, let's be frank here. The government recognise that they are a little bit behind the 8 ball with their preparation for the hub. Now, I do feel very much for people like Matt and like Lachlan and like Ivan and the guys that are working on this, because these type of laws come down by ministers and then, they say, right, guys, put it in motion. I know the amount of work that's gone on in the background with this, and those deadlines and those target dates of testing site available late May and commencement 30 June are on track. However, something which the Department of Customer Service had assured us is if it doesn't look as though it will be going live on those dates, they will consider extensions for Strata managers. And their advice to us is keep an eye out for this. So they're not going to put the blowtorch on Strata managers if we're non-compliant, particularly if the tools and the facilities aren't available for Strata managers to upload this information. I can see here there is a myriad of questions coming in, and then I might throw to you if you don't mind, which is great, guys. And look, really speaking, these sessions are designed for you to provide you information, so please do not hesitate to throw your questions into the Q&A. So Emily, over to you.
I think there's just to make a point to start with, there are still a lot of technical pieces that we don't know the answers to yet. So certainly Yvonne and Lachlan and Matt are aware that there are some pieces that our members are really looking for answers to that we just don't have any further update on as at today's date. And you'll see a couple of questions coming in the Q&A around that. So I think that's something to be certainly aware of. But one of the one is, Matt, this one's probably, once I've put in my 2 cents, I'll hand over to you, but this one's coming across in a couple of questions. So Adam's asked, has there been any further update in regards to business users in Service New South Wales to upload plans as opposed to the Strata manager using their personal accounts? So that's a big question, probably one of the most common questions. And to my knowledge, Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, there hasn't been an update on that as yet. But I know it's one of the top things Yvonne and his team are working on, because it is tricky from our point of view to have our Strata managers using their own personal accounts to enter this information.
Yeah, so they're working on a business account that can get around that issue. But the question I had, I don't know the timing, unfortunately, but it's definitely a live issue, you know, and it's understood. I think it's just a matter of, okay, well, when does that come in?
Yeah,
And,
I think,
is
yeah,
it, you know, October or December?
Yeah.
Or...
I think the other thing to add too is as soon as these changes do get announced, more than likely we'll be out to you with documentation, probably another webinar to address some of these things once we know the answers. So I guess at this stage we can stress those things that are important. And Tony, there's a question you've highlighted there as well that I'll pass to you. Those things are certainly important. They're on the agenda, and as soon as we've got the answers to them, we absolutely will provide it. Tony, did you want to go through? Oh, it's anonymous attendee.
Well, I will go to that because he's such a popular character. But I suppose one of the things, this is going to be not so much the thin edge of the wedge, but once the concept of Strata Hub is there is so much more information that would be available to go into this as it develops that will serve the community and serve Strata managers and serve government and emergency services and council and that sort of stuff. So I think that data sheet is going to grow over the years, without doubt. Most of us here on the call were involved in the initial consultation around the Strata Hub, and the stuff that we said as Strata managers we'd like captured. Not a hell of a lot of that is actually being captured. So because that information would be good for benchmarking and what have you. So I think there's more information coming. But yes, the government is sort of running pretty fast to try and catch up with what the announcements are. Let me go to Darren Clark's comment that he put in here regarding the reminders to assisting managing the Strata scheme. Darren, I think that's coming. I don't think it's going to be here right now. I think that there will be a working party between government and SCA where we will, as we start to gather data, we'll say, you know, it'd be good if you sent this stuff out, you know, or how is this information going to come to the manager, or will you be sending it to the contact in the hub, which might be the secretary or someone like that.
Yeah, that's right, Tony. And thinking particularly of those things where there's a nominated date. So, you know, simple stuff like AGM, you know, and maybe annual fire safety statement. And then, you know, that's the easy part. And then how you might extend from there to give other reminders to just generally help. But like you say, that needs to be worked through. Don't know the answers yet.
Okay. And I suppose to get to anonymous attendees question or statement here, and most of you guys know I don't, you won't die wondering what my opinion is on these sort of things. I think we've had 20 years of under governance. So the reason we have a building commissioner and the reason we have, you know, Matt in terms of regulatory compliance is because the government recognises that consumers had lost confidence in the built environment. And so that lack of governance, I'm not pointing the blame at anyone, is now being seen as over governance by anonymous attendee. I don't think so. I think the pendulum is swinging back the right way. The amount of information we're going to provide here is is easy. If you want to do a strata search, this information is going to be available. This just makes that process a lot simpler. I don't think any ability for consumers to get access to information about their property is a good thing. We're not going to allow competitive things happen where you'll be able to look up if you're Stephen Brill and you want to take business off your local strata, as if that had happened, that you could look up on the hub and see who the manager is or get a list of my business. That's just not going to happen. I mean, SCA would fight that because that's completely anti-competitive. And in terms of the comment,
sorry,
Brill,
yeah, mate, I just want to jump in there because that dovetails into a comment or a question that Joanne Cox put up in the chat. And guys, everyone, just ask everyone if you can put your questions in the Q&A. It just makes it a whole lot easier for us to manage. But Joanne posted in the chat, does this mean that another strata management company will be able who finds out who manages the building will then be able to poach plans? I think this would be a big problem if they had access to this info. So just so everyone's aware, the information that's available, i.e. strata committee members and that sort of thing, it is only available, that is not publicly available. That is only available to residents of the particular scheme. It's available to the government and it's available to emergency services. Now, in the Q&A that's coming out tomorrow, and granted, we're privy to this because we've got it in front of us. Basically, the government will be reviewing each person that logs into the hub, and you've got to be verified as a user of that building before you can get information. And they do say in there that they will be monitoring this type of behavior, and they will be also punishing this type of behavior as well. And to Tony's point, if a strata manager was found to be going onto the hub and trying to poach information, I think that would be an excellent way or a really good way to complain to SCA about that behavior. And then SCA would be able to, again, reprimand that SCA member for doing that practice. So I just wanted to jump in there, Tone, because that was a very relevant question. So back to you.
Yeah, sure. The other point that is made by my famous friend here is that costs will blow out for strata owners. Absolutely, costs are going up. If you look at the Design and Practitioners Act that came in, I reckon that's added 15% cost across the board to any balcony works that you're going to do. But there is a cost to consumer protection. You can't get it without the cost coming through. There's a cost to all the SCA members. You guys have to pay $232 to be a member of the professional standards scheme. That is the cost that you need to bear in your business.
Oh.
We losing him?
Sounds like Tony needs to upgrade his internet connection. Speaking of cost.
He hasn't paid the bill, yeah.
A lot of people are passing that through. But stop. I'll go off video. Is that going to help?
There we go.
We've got you back, yes.
That's a much better view.
Sure. Cool. I'll go off video for a little while. Over to you, Em, for the next one.
Yeah, so there's a couple of questions coming in around, now Robert's asked a good one around the office bearers being unwilling to have their information. So Robert's exact question is, I suspect that many secretaries and chairpersons may not be willing to make their personal contact details available on the hub. Will there be a strata manager area that this information can be entered instead? And likewise, there's a further question down here from Maria around the same situation. So you will see in the document the SCA sends out tomorrow the answers to that, so who can see it, because it doesn't become public. But and some of what we were talking about in our preparation for this webinar is some of the stuff you need to start to do with your committees. And one of those things is talking to them about what this means for them as a group. So the first part of that is certainly seeking their consent to have that information on the hub. In addition to that, seeking their consent for you if you don't have full delegation to enter and be responsible for this type of exercise on their behalf. And then obviously that we've got a motion in the handout for tomorrow, so you can add a motion to your strata committee agenda that will actually cover off on giving you that delegation, not just as a one-off exercise, but as an ongoing exercise. What we have got confirmation of is that you cannot have your strata manager detail there instead of the secretary's details or the chairperson's details. So that what needs to happen is we need to start to really, it's not an option for the committee members to say, no, we can't consent to that. The last thing we want is, I guess, for people not to want to be office bearers, secretaries or chair people because their information is on the hub. What we need to be very specific with them is to let them know it's not public. It's available to those people that are in the building, and all of the criteria that Stephen went through, emergency services, etc. There is, let's be realistic, there is the possibility that, you know, they could get a call on a Saturday night because there's a party next door and they need to do something about it because, you know, someone's got their details. So, you know, that's an option. And I suspect that's where some of this hesitation is there. Unfortunately, this is going to form part of the conditions of the hub. And we really need to start to ensure our committee members feel comfortable with that and help them understand that this is part of the role that they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And then it's all about education. And this is what part of these webinars are all about, is preparing owners for what is coming. Just on that, I'm just reading through the Q&A. This is a common theme that's coming through, that, you know, a lot of my committee members don't want to be on the hub. Look, a great suggestion that I heard during the week was a lot of owners corporations, a lot of strata schemes now are actually creating generic emails for their strata committee. So it might be, you know, secretary at SP12345, you know, so to speak. So it's not linked to an individual person. It is linked to a role. So that may be just an effective way for those owners corporations that are out there or people that are out there that are concerned that their personal information is going to be uploaded onto the hub. That may be a way, you know, to placate those concerns. And again, the beauty about having a generic email like that is that if they ever leave the role of secretary, then the email history is then available for the next secretary or treasurer or whoever the person is that may actually come into the role. So yeah, so Tony, you're back with us now. So do you have a question that you'd like to pose?
There's a main questions, which is great. Let me answer a couple of these. So a lot of it stems from around people being happy with their information being available and that sort of stuff, and the privacy of that information. Certainly, the government is going to protect their privacy. I mean, that's their mandate because it's their hub. But in terms of people being uncomfortable giving up their personal details and that sort of stuff, we can't compel them to do this. Like, we can't say you must give us your phone number. And I'd be reluctant to certainly put my office phone number down as well, because as Emily was saying, this stuff can't be delegated to the strata manager. Although I fundamentally think that will evolve, because there are a lot of managers where there either aren't any strata committee members, or they operate on an absolute full delegation basis, where the committee just basically doesn't exist. And there was another comment here about that the committee members might be all off-site. So ringing them when they're in Queensland for a fire that's happening next door to their building in Sydney is pretty useless. So I think this stuff needs to evolve, and I think we need to be happy to let it evolve. I think they're probably going to get 90% of this right, and the other 10% will evolve out. Matt, I mean, are you sort of thinking that as well?
Yeah, definitely. You know, this is not going to be 100% perfect day one. I mean, big changes like this never are, and I think, you know, and I guess the call is to just say stick with it. You know, stick with it. Know that we're listening. We truly are engaging. If more time needs to be provided, we're really conscious of that. So the timeline's the timeline, where it's currently on track, like Stephen says. But, you know, if we find that, you know, 3 months is too tight, we make that 6 months or something like that, we're very much open to that. The message that's not stopping. It'll definitely happen. We're going to go roll with it. So work with it, and we'll work with you.
Exactly right, and that ongoing feedback is invaluable. Again, I'm just scrolling through. As you can probably tell, I'm a man. I can only do one thing at a time, which is read questions, and host is not my forte. I am doing my best to get through a lot of the questions that are on here. Some which we can knock over, which are pretty simple. A question earlier from Samantha Walters: will a scheme previously uploaded to the hub be able to be transferred between strata manager to strata manager rather than being uploaded on multiple occasions? The simple answer to that one is yes. So if manager one has uploaded all of the data for the hub, like e.g. strata plan number of lots and basic information like so, if you take on the management of a scheme partway through a year, basically what you'll need to do is simply update your information on the hub as the new strata manager. And assuming that the committee members' details and so forth are all the same, all of that information will still be there. So I hope that helps you with that particular answer, Samantha. Emily, Tony's favorite person, anonymous attendee, has posted another question. So do you want to get onto that one?
Yeah, there's quite a few in here. There was one that has actually been taken off that I wanted to cover. It was around strata searches. So one of our members asked a question around if we've got this information, does it negate the need for strata searches? Well, the simple answer to that is no, it doesn't, because it's not public. What I mean by public, it's only available to a select group of people. In addition to that, strata searches are searches that cover off on absolutely every piece of documentation that we have on behalf of an owners corporation. That simply won't be on the hub. It'll be the key information that sits there. So one is not going to replace the other, certainly not in the short term.
I'll jump in on one from Susan here, Em, which is great, and it talks about the $3 per lot. And I mean, my understanding of the average strata levy in Sydney is about, say, $1,200 a quarter, so nearly $5,000 a year. $3 over $5,000, it's not even going to raise a sweat for anyone. That's like a cup of coffee cost, Susan. So I don't think you'll get pushback on that. My business, we're going to charge half an hour to do this, and that's at our hourly rate. So that's just how we're going to do it. Same as when we issued all these all these great COVID notices and that sort of stuff, the check-in stuff that we did. We charge a fee for that. It's just a fee for compliance. But I would definitely recommend to any SCA member, you should be charged for this. If the government is mandating you must do this, you should be charging a fee for this. Now, you want to capture that in your management agreements going forward. You also want to capture it in the motions at the AGM. So there's a question that came further on, is what if people refuse? If the motion is in the AGM that this information has to be provided to be compliant, and then the committee refused to provide that information, well, then the committee is really at dispute with the owners corporation. In our motions, we're putting this motion around the Strata Hub prior to the committee meeting motions, so that people nominating for a committee are aware of the requirements of Strata Hub, is what we've done. Really?
Yeah, no, that's right. And again, with that, and this will be what part of the upgrade to the agency agreement is, giving managers that authority to say, right, if a Strata committee member is giving us your details, then our authority is to then upload that information onto the hub, and then we are protected. Again, in the Q&A, sorry, the FAQ that's coming out tomorrow, there is a specific question about who would be fined in the event that there is non-compliance with the hub. Now, again, to reiterate from the last webinar, the onus to actually upload information on the hub is the responsibility of the owners corporation. However, where a strata manager has been delegated this function, then it will fall on to the strata manager. So if the strata manager refuses to do it, then they will be fined. If the owners corporation refuses to do it, the owners corporation will be fined. So just going on from Tony's point there, the way that you would cover yourselves with this, if there is a motion in your AGM agenda that covers this off, then you'll be protected, for that particular contingency. Okay, Tony, you've got another question here from Karina that you'd like to answer.
Oh, Karina, one of my favorite gals in Strata.
Yeah.
I mean, it comes around privacy, and Lance has got a question in here too about privacy and that sort of stuff. I mean, that's I think we need to sort of take a sit back on this and sort of say, someone can do a strata inspection now and get access to this information and even more information about it. Someone could easily go to one of these strata inspection firms that are online that have done inspections of buildings around your area, and they can get access, pay $175 or whatever it is, and get access to that report. So the information is not massively private at the moment, but you've got to work hard to get it. Now, access to this private information is not going to be available to everyone. It's only available to certain parties that do need it. But further down the track, this stuff will continue to evolve. Matt, do you have a view on the
I think you're totally right. You'd be surprised how much information you might think is private is public. So Land Registry Services already release a lot of information about who's on the title, who are the owners, what's the ownership structure, all of that sort of stuff. So it is there, like you say, Tony. And there's been a lot of questions, is this going to be sold off? Well, I haven't heard that mentioned at all, and you can never say never. But I think we understand as government, this is about making the system work better. That's primarily what it's about. And we can't do anything that's going to erode trust in that. So, you know, it's in all of our interest to try and protect as much private and personal information as possible, while still allowing, you know, this communication to function.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, and that dovetails nicely into Robert's question here, which you said you'd like to answer about the privacy of certain types of information.
Yeah, so, and perhaps Matt, you can help us with this one. So Robert asks, I understand that there's no requirement to provide lot owner information on the hub. If that is correct, how will the government know who the owners are and have access to that hub information? So we did cover this off. Lachlan was very good with this last time, but Matt, if you wanted to talk about sort of the other areas that you guys are grabbing it from, so it's not necessarily coming directly from us as strata managers.
Yeah, I'm not so familiar with that one. Sorry.
So there was information that Lachlan
Yeah.
spoke about last time, and Steve, jump in here too, where he talked about being able to get information through the rental bond, you know, cross-checking against various things. There's public registers for strata manager detail and license numbers. So they are looking to utilise all those other, I guess, registers that the government holds to cross-check.
Right. Yeah, to cross-check if it's accurate or not. Yes,
that's right, and therefore give those people access because they verify them.
Correct. So rental bond board holds it, you know, and
yeah, that's right. And these are a lot of the teething issues that, you know, no doubt are going to come out over the next, you know, 12, 15, 18 months. So just to go on with this and what with Lachlan was talking about at the last webinar. So verifying users to the hub, so i.e. strata owners in a strata building and then residents in a strata building. The way that the government is proposing this work is that there will be a cross-reference with LRS. So we'll go in there and say, right, is Matt Press registered for this particular building?
So that's the title.
Yep, that's right. And then if Tony Irvine is a tenant in this strata scheme, is Tony registered with the rental bonds? And then that will cover off the tenant aspect. This is one of the concerns that I raised, because I had this horrifying thought that strata managers would be to uploading, you know, strata roles on a daily basis to make sure that all this information was correct. However, that's how the government intends for this to be done. And as Emily said, there's also going to be a cross-reference against fair trading with our licensing details and so forth. So again, there's a lot of mechanics here to happen in the background, and the government is aware of this. And again, what we are doing and what you guys are doing with your questions is obviously bringing this to their attention of some of the practical issues that they may face on the ground. Samantha has posed another question that you look like you want to answer. Yeah.
Yes. Well, Matt, help me out here. Has a notification been produced to all schemes yet, including those who are self-managed? So Lachlan last time spoke about doing, you know, the age-old letterbox drop and things like that, for where we don't know who manages what schemes and we don't have those electronic contacts. Can you provide an update on that?
Yeah, so that's the best idea we have at the moment, to just get really old school, if you like, and physically do it. We've also got some data matching from e-planning that we can try and use and see if we've got other means or mechanisms there. But if we get stuck, literally physically visiting.
And has that happened or started happening to give strata owners an idea that it's coming?
No, I don't believe that hasn't happened yet. We've just used the sort of the standard, you know, property newsletter box, e-newsletters, that sort of thing.
For sure. Just closing out a question that's been posted by John. Do I understand that tenants within a complex will be able to obtain information from the strata hub? Yes, they will, John. That's the intent, is for residents of a strata scheme to be able to gain access to information on the hub, assuming that they are registered as a tenant. And that via the rental bonds board, and that information is available through the hub. The other one here, which again I think is an important topic for us to sort of start looking at for this session, there's again Tony's favorite person, Anonymous, has come in with the question: how do we use these motions when AGMs cannot be held before the 30th of September? Now, this is part of the preparation piece, I think, that strata managers need to be undertaking with their clients. I have a view on this. I know certainly Tony and Emily will also. Tony, you've been silent for a little while, so I might throw to you. What do you think we should be doing here in relation to that?
I definitely think that if you've got a AGM that's that has already been held and you're not going to do it again, you just need to call a strata committee meeting. There's motions around, you know, what you should put on the strata committee to be able to upload this information. So if it hasn't been carried at the AGM, I would just be doing a strata committee, because you've got to be compliant. You're not going to wait 11 months before you can before you can get permission to do this. So you get it from the Strata Committee, because decisions by the owners corporation, decisions by the Strata Committee are binding on the owners corporation if made in good faith.
Yep. So Emily, what's your view on this?
I think there's a couple of things. If you certainly need to, if you haven't already, have a look at what meetings are going to meet that time frame in order to get your appropriate resolution. So that's your first step. There will be lots that fall out of sync. So there'll be some that need to be held in October or December, or a month that we're not going to cover off on. In those cases, we're recommending that the motion is a committee meeting motion. So you do have the ability to do a quick paper meeting, an electronic meeting, just to sort of cover it off until you get to your AGM. Alternatively, you've also got the option to run an AGM, but that's obviously a big piece of work for a couple of motions. I did quite like Tony's idea earlier that you put this motion on before your committee election, so that they know that this is part and parcel of being in that role. I thought that was a great idea, and something that we all should be doing. But from our point of view, from our business point of view, a simple paper electronic notice, a Strata vote notice, a yes will be working for us.
Yes.
What is happening to the
I was going to
screen?
say, I was going to say, I think Tony's figured out how to raise his hand after all. After 2.5 years.
Hand up.
Yeah.
It's not very often that Emily
sickness.
says that I actually
Yeah.
come up with something smart, so I
Yeah.
thought I'd raise my hand to that stage.
Oh, I
acknowledging what she said.
I see. Okay, fair enough. No,
Yeah.
so
I probably wouldn't be doing this by doing sort of paper SEM at all. I think this is a real opportunity for us to engage with our owners corporations and with their Strata committees and talk to them about the problem that the government is trying to solve, and why this is a good thing. Like if we leave it in abeyance for them to sort of work out, you're going to get people that will say, well, don't put my phone number up. Where if you're describing it to them, the features and benefits and why this is good, and what the government's trying to achieve, I think you'll get more rich data. The government doesn't want to build this pink Ferrari and have no one wanting to drive it. So they're going to want to have rich data in there so they can work it. If everyone doesn't put their mobiles in or their phone numbers in, the government hasn't achieved what they wanted to do. So we need to be part of the solution, not part of the resistance.
Yeah, and just following on from the P&O last week, I mean, look, one of the big things with this, again, Tony mentioned this at the start, Strata Hub is an inconvenience to Strata managers right now. I think we all acknowledge that. However, you can use this as a great communication piece for your owners. We spoke last week about what information should Strata managers be feeding to their lot owners and what value adds can we provide. Introducing the Strata Hub to your owners can form a newsletter that you can send out to your owners, just saying, hey guys, just so you know, this is coming. There was a question posed earlier, and I do apologize because I think it got flicked off the screen, but SCA will be putting together, again, a guide for Strata managers to give to owners, to say, look, Strata Hub is coming, and these are, this is not some convoluted system that's been cooked up by the Strata manager. This is a government regulation that needs to be complied with, and here's what the intent is all about. When you see the Q&A that comes out tomorrow, there is an opening, there's an introduction to that, which really explains what the Strata Hub is. And again, it's a really good tool for Strata managers to provide to their Strata owners. So there are clever ways that you can introduce this information to your owners. We've mentioned a couple: committee meetings, AGMs. You may just want to put a footer on the bottom of your email saying, hey, do you know Strata Hub is coming? And then have a link going to the government website, which has a lot of the answers which owners are going to be asking. So there are ways that you can interact with your Strata communities and look at this as an opportunity to provide a different type of communication piece. One of the things we spoke about last week was the amount of negative communication that a Strata manager has to send out to their owners: a levy notice, a bylaw breach, these sorts of things. Hey, now here is something, a little bit of information piece that we can send out to our owners, just educating them on what is coming. Tony, Samantha has posed a great question all about AFS data, and you have said that you'd like to answer it.
Yeah, look, I think it comes back to this evolution of what Strata Hub will look like. I think if you fast forward 5 years, there'll be lots of government repository systems that will be talking to each other. I think the rental bond board one is a little bit flawed because the name they put on the lease may not necessarily be the name they put on the Strata roll. So there's a whole heap of data matching issues there, and there's a lot of private leases where they probably don't even put them through the rental bond board and what have you. But I think if you fast forward this sort of 5 years, there'll be a lot of interactions with other systems, and fire and rescue is in there. I think I think all of the things around, you know, the spatial databases that exist in government of how they sort of understand how many schools are within areas and where they should be, you know, where they should be allowing sort of buildings to be built because they've got schools coming in that space. I think there'll be a lot of interaction. Matty, you got the same view?
Yep. I couldn't have said it any better, actually. So well done.
Yeah, and well done, Tony. You got your hand up again. So just looking again, just scrolling through the Q&A, there are a lot of very bespoke and very interesting questions that are coming through. So one here from Anthony: if the scheme has a manned phone number, such as a 24-hour concierge, can this be used for the committee? I think the short answer to that is I don't think it's been contemplated yet by government, but it's a great question that we can put to Department of Customer Service. So that one, Anthony, we will come back to you on that one. But
I would
again,
say yes. So I think the question is more if you've got a building manager in place, and maybe that's a different way to frame it. If there's a building manager in place and the building manager has a management agreement or whatever we want to call it, where they're there for after hours contacts and emergencies, I don't think the government would not want that information to be available.
Yeah, and just flowing on from
it's for that emergency situation, Tony.
Yeah,
you know, that's the
so
thing. So
a building manager is fine.
Yeah,
think about it. You know, the fire department. You know, let's say it's a building that might have some flammable cladding that's still yet to be removed. So that's on the fire department's local action plan anyway. And they've got a contact to know if there was a fire in that building, who do we ring straight away to just find out a bit more about what's been going on, so we can have the best possible response.
Yeah, and Tony, I noticed here that you were typing away John Russell's answer about can strata managers gain tenant information? Now, Matt, this is actually a great question, which I don't know, but I assume I should know. If a strata manager has access to upload information on the hub, then they would be able to gain access to information on the hub. So, for example, a tenant information, or as Jan has posed down the bottom here, if LRS is married to the hub, we may be able to get informed of a new owner purchase before we've received a Section 22 notice.
Yeah, I don't think that's been looked at yet. The LRS has been looked at sort of as a verification. But it would take much more work to sort of get it to automatically input. So we're thinking it more, you know, get a report off LRS and then do a matching. Obviously having it automated where we'd like to go, but that's not going to be possible day one at all. Definitely not.
Yeah, and I think that there'll be a lot of data that ultimately will sit in this that will be private from a whole heap of people, but for some government departments or for some groups, that information will be critical for them to have. But
and that's pretty much the structure. You know, there's the public that disclosed, there's only disclosed to different public subsets, and then what's only disclosed to the regulator. So that I guess that's the most private. So it's sort of three settings.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Really?
Yep. No, absolutely. Again, mate, I'm trying to do my main thing and
We're
do two things at once.
Emily, do you want to grab this question from mine and your friend anonymous attendee about phone numbers of owners being available to potentially tenants so they can find out who their owner is?
Yeah, so these are and perhaps that's a Matt question. So the information that goes on there, if you're a verified person, so once you get into there, my understanding is at the level that so if you're a tenant, you'll be able to see whatever is available to tenants. Steve, I don't know or Matt, if it's actually tenants can see their landlord information directly.
No, again, I believe the way you got to bear in mind, not all owners' information is going to be up on the hub. So it's not as though there's going to be a strata roll there listing 20 lots with lot 1, lot 2. It'll just be the secretary, treasurer, chairperson, emergency contact.
Yep, that's it. Those 4 key people.
Yep.
Yeah, that's right. So it's not the strata roll. It's not tenants better access the landlord specifically. It's tenants better access the secretary or the chairperson, which they should be able to do.
When you actually get the document from us tomorrow morning, it's nicely set out in a table who's got access to what level. So really make sure you have get to know that section. It's very simple to understand. You'll actually be able to see there and refer back to that. That will also, I hope, give your committee members, those that are concerned about privacy, that'll give them some, I guess, guidance on who can see what. Steve, can I answer one from Lisa, which talks about, has there been any consideration given on what will happen when we hold a committee meeting or an AGM and the owner resigns for the committee mid-year, or that they don't want to agree to go back on it. So again, we're sitting in that privacy space. What I did want to sort of elaborate on that question though, Lisa, is that I think we need to work out in our businesses, and this is the stuff we all need to learn and implement, but we need to work in our businesses what it means for us every time that happens. So as part of our potentially our AGM checklist, when we get a new committee member, a new secretary, a new emergency contact, we will need to go in and update the hub. If someone does resign from their role, or they sell, let's say your secretary sells and you get someone new in there, you will have to have a process in your business that updates that information. So we need to be thinking about that. We need to have some ownership around that by, which role in our business does that. I would suggest we probably all still work on checklists, whether they're in paper or electronic. We need to make sure it's added to that. So we keep on top of this stuff.
I think that's where the API starts to come in, so it can link in with the existing system. So it's not a specific manual process to go into the portal and upload, that it's automated.
It feeds into it. Yes.
Feeds in. Yeah.
No, absolutely. Now, again, guys, I can see the questions are still coming in thick and fast. And there's a lot of questions here, which I'll be perfectly frank, we don't necessarily have answers to, as Emily alluded to earlier. As more information evolves, we will certainly be issuing that to members and to owners, out there in Strata land. Because look, obviously, judging by the comments that are coming through, there is a lot of angst about Strata Hub, and that's absolutely to be expected. Appreciate that, Strata managers are going to cop a lot of questions from their Strata committees. There's a lot of questions in there, a very interesting question that's come in about, I'm the secretary in a building and my tenant lives downstairs. How do I hide my information? I don't profess to be a black ops expert. I have no idea is the answer to that particular question. I guess the intent of the hub is, again, as Matt said at the outset, it's to assist with the governance of strata schemes and to provide access to information for owners and residents in schemes as well. A lot of people are being obviously very skeptical about it. It looks like it's a mass data collection exercise. Again, data is good. I know that in this day and age, when we go into things like social media and so forth, it gets a really bad name. But the more data we have, the better we can manage our strata schemes with effective data. Again, getting back to where the Office of Building Commissioner came from, the first thing David Chandler did was go on a data collection exercise to find out what were the real problems going on in strata schemes. And to a far lesser extent, this is what the intent of the hub is to ensure governance and compliance and better management of strata schemes out there in New South Wales. And again, I think we need to get back to that intent of what the hub is all about.
And trying to eventually, once we're through this really first significant hump of actually getting the data in, to make it that it's far less frictionless going forward. It's a real pain in the ass getting in on day one, but it won't be this hard going forward.
Yeah. Yep, no, absolutely. Look, I'm very cognizant. We are 2 minutes to 5 o'clock. I want to give a big thank you to Matt, Emily, and Tony for their contribution today. Also, thank you to Anonymous, who's closed off by saying, thank you for your answers. It is difficult. Your patience has been much appreciated. Learning curve for all. Absolutely. Anonymous, probably no better comment than that today. And there was another one there saying data is the new oil. Absolutely.
I saw that one.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. So look, again, guys, be assured we are in continual liaisons. No, that's not quite right. In continual discussion with government about the Strata Hub. As soon as we know information, we will be putting it out to owners. Again, I do encourage you, look out for the FAQ that is coming out tomorrow morning. Hopefully that will allay a lot of your concerns. And again, use it as a reference that you may be able to give to your Strata owners who are asking you those tough questions. As more questions are answered, we will be adding to that FAQ. And we will have a little bit of a guide put out by SCA for Strata managers to give to their Strata owners about the Strata Hub. Quick reminder again, don't forget about the golf day next week. I also forgot to mention earlier today, there is a Young Strata Network event which will be held on Wednesday, the 22nd of June. So that's basically about 6 weeks from today. We do encourage all the business owners and business leaders out there to allow your junior staff members to attend these particular events because, again, they are the future of our industry, and the more that they network and gain connections in the industry, the better it will be for all. So that's pretty much all from us today, guys. Again, thank you, Matt. Thank you, Emily. And thank you, Tony. We will see you in 2 weeks' time for our next Wednesday webinar. We're not quite sure what the topic is yet. I probably do know. I've probably been told, but I've forgotten what it is. But thank you, everyone. And we'll see you in a couple of weeks' time. Thanks all.